what I think is the origin of Kabbalah that we know of now.
Mhm.
Um, as far as we can date back written history, it goes back about 6,000 years ago at the very earliest, that we can say definitely there was forms of written expression. Uh, Kabbalah predates that. It goes to prehistoric times when before there was writing, there were only the original oral transmitted myths, and these were only beginning to be concocted and even passed along at this time. So we have about 12,500 BC and the Younger Dryas event. Some say it was associated with six cometary impact fragments, six
Mhm.
cometary fragments that impacted on the planet and set us back a bit, so to speak, in a population bottleneck temporarily. But that may have kickstarted the end of the last ice age as well, causing rapid melting of the glaciers that had covered North America. The result of that was that in modern Australia, which at the time was a larger island with a much closer proximity to the also lower sea leveled uh, landmass of Eastern Asia, Southeastern Asia. Um, that was the primary center for human population around then. So this was before Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Oh,
This was before the Kurgan culture. This is the origins of the Kurgan culture and the Indo-European language base. In Oceania, in uh, what we now call Australia, but in the continental landmass that we have named historically Sunda and Sahul, uh, and the archipelago of islands that were in between Sunda and Sahul. There was uh, a centralized population of early humans that created the majority of the myths that spread then in the Indo-European languages throughout the subcontinent of India into the Levant and into Egypt and Africa and eventually into the Mediterranean, into Greece, etc. But these were the original myths of the creation of the world, the creation of the first tree, the creation of the first man and the first woman, and then the tricking of the first family by trickster, deceptive um, demons, as it were, and then a war in heaven between the good and evil elemental spirits. And then finally, they described the Great Deluge. And this is all in E.J. Michael Witzel's book, Origins of the World's Mythologies. It's very well researched and traced out there. But he notes that these myths that constituted essentially everything in the book of Genesis, at least later on, that these earliest myths lacked a Messiah concept or the mythology that
mhm.
would be related to the prophecies of a Messiah. Uh, Kabbalah itself at this time was just represented by a string game called Cat's Cradle. And you would take a loop of string and wrap it in between your fingers and then interlace your fingers again and again with the string until eventually it created a lattice-like structure, such as we can see here. And in this particular structure, in this particular looped structure, there are 22 intersections or loops of the string around itself. So it can be compared directly to the later 22 paths on the Tree of Life of Kabbalah. So if we trace this back to Oceania and what we could call nowadays Lemuria,
Mhm.
in pre-end of the last ice age era times, um, then we've got to trace down to at least before the beginning of written history. But if it existed even before that time as well, we can't really be sure or understand in what form it might have existed. And we could speculate, the 10 fingers and the 10 Sephiroth being an obvious place to start with that. But we can't be certain, for example, the number of knuckles, and in modern palmistry, the number of knuckles can be associated with the 12 signs of the zodiac, the mounds on the palm with the planets, and the thumb and lifeline can be associated with the three phases of matter. But it's impossible to say because there wasn't written history at the time, and there's no remaining evidence like the cat's cradle game that we can compare to modern versions to say that palmistry as we understand it now is definitely a precursor to the most ancient Kabbalah.